Okay. And I know this was just the tip of the iceberg, as several of the speakers said. So I know in 45 minutes you cannot sort of answer everything, but I think it's the beginning of a very interesting conversation. So let's have the squares, if you don't mind doing this so that people can record properly.
I've ended up being...
You want me to hold this?
Yes, that would be good. Thank you. I've ended up being this by default because we forgot to appoint someone to do it. And there is nothing square about us, we want to point out. We are not squares. I mean, as with probably most of the groups, the discussion ranged quite a lot. But we focused mainly on the fact that the way in which impact is organised at the moment, you're at the mercy of the dominance of the funding criteria. We're always looking to show the impact according to whom our funder is. And coming out of that, we thought a little bit about interpreting policy and Ian's notion of the flipped model that we saw earlier, the way in which we might want to try and influence policy with that flipped model, that we're starting somewhere different. The great thing in Belfast, I'm sure it's the same in Scotland, where you say to a taxi man you want to go somewhere, and he or she says to you, well, if I was you, I wouldn't start from here. And so it's that kind of thing, trying to get policy to start somewhere else. We felt that these things were kind of cross everything, that we needed to think of the digital as a tool, not as an end in itself, and that we needed to have suitable resources, and we needed to find a language for things, actually, because we use languages might mean different things in different organisations even, so we need to find a kind of common language around it. We then had a marvellous eureka moment, thanks to Laura. I'm going to embarrass her. She was kind of saying very little, and then she had this wonderful eureka moment where she said that for her, impact was short term, but value was long term. And that led us to think about the fact that within an organisation, we might want to think of our impact as being projects, which were allied to the dominance of the funding criteria. And we built up a number of these projects, but that these projects fitted into a longer term value strategy, which was the strategy of the organisation. So you could be running both of them parallel. You could be running the short-term projects to get impact, but that's really about constructing your value strategy on a longer-term basis. And we felt that was a really interesting idea coming out of that. And I think it was Fiona who gave us this notion of, we've all latched on to, nobody more guilty than me, collaboration. You know, we're always collaborating all the time, you know. But actually, that's become a kind of albatross around our neck, because we need to think about unique collaboration. We need to think about finding partners which are going to deliver what we need, not a kind of general collaboration. Okay, we need an academic, we need this, we need that. No, what do you need to deliver the project? And then you create the unique collaboration which will deliver that particular project. And I think that was an interesting thing around getting impact. In terms of gaps, very quickly, sector fragmentation. I would never have met people if I had not been fortunate enough to be here today. And I was saying I was not aware that the museum sector was at the cutting edge of this. It's probably shame on me, but I wasn't aware of it. I am now, so that gives me somewhere else to look. So that kind of fragmentation, how do we address that? Fear of failure and undervaluing kind of opportunism within a project, that was really interesting. I'm a great believer in the Samuel Beckett thing, fail and fail well. And we kind of go into projects thinking we have to be successful, but sometimes having not met the criteria but found out something else more interesting. And we ought to be brave enough to kind of say that within an impact strategy. Lack of agility in order to react stuff. Academies are the worst. It takes me 3 months to get anything done, to get permission to do anything, but I was told in future just to look for forgiveness and not permission, so I'm going to do that in future, and I'm going to blame you for that. I love this one from Ian. Committee strangulation. As soon as you get something up, everybody wants to have a steering committee and a working party and a committee on this, and it just strangles the project. You know, we have to find some way to do this without putting the straitjacket of the committee structure around it somehow. We have to find a way that allows it to be agile, to be these things. And I know your arms are sore. I'm nearly finished, I promise. And an interesting point from Christy about, well, two-sided thing. How do we protect these digital artifacts that we're making? How do we make sure that they're there going forward in a sustainable strategy? And also, equally as important, how do we allow people who don't want it to be there to do away with it? The kind of cultural Snapchat. You know, you've worked with people, but they don't want it to be there anymore. How do we ensure that it's taken away and it's not there? So that was as far as we got.
It's very interesting, I think, the value and the impact, the short term and the longer term. And I think the closer the two are and the clearer we are by discussing and kind of revisiting this, it's easy to plan for, so you don't feel too frustrated if it's only impact related to project, as long as you've thought a little bit about the value and the wider things. So it's very interesting for this group, apart from keeping me very fit.
Anybody want to say, have I missed anything? Anybody want to say anything before we?
Okay.